Welcome to Bond Park. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Marshall.
And I'm Luke Villemaire, a filmmaker from KW.
Welcome to Bond Park.
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 Luke, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to talk to you. I lost a little bit of sleep last night after your screening, and that was because I was beating myself up because I shoved you, and I really didn't mean to.
No, I was happy about it. Thank you. Shove me anytime you want. I'm down.
In the lobby after.
In the lobby afterwards, and it's sort of, I do, if you're old enough to be a fan of Seinfeld, I don't know how else to say it, or somebody who has consumed any Seinfeld in your life, I do have that Elaine quality of like, shut up, and I push someone. So I hit you with my mittens. You were fully on in a conversation with some people, and I hit you with my mittens, and then I looked at you and I just said, way to go, and I shoved you, and you went a little bit flying, and I'm really sorry.
Oh yeah,
that.
I'm just small and I have no balance, so it was good. It was a nice way to say
okay?
hello. I appreciated it. Yeah.
I got hit with those same mittens and shoved earlier that evening.
Yeah.
I don't think I moved though.
No, you didn't move. No. You were ready. You were
Sturdy.
He was sturdy, ready to go. He was in a stance. Sarah's about to shove me. Here it comes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're used to it by now.
I need to watch out.
Yeah.
Last night, March 2nd, we were privileged enough to come and see your hometown screening of your long-awaited film, Goliath. Man, was that room full of some love and joy. That's our favorite topic to talk about together. Me and Marshall talk love and joy all the time. And that was a squishy room.
It was full. It was packed. It was like all my high school teachers were there. Like everyone was representing, my friends, my family. It was wonderful having the community come out to support the event.
I think there was even a few people like sharing a seat. Because just maybe we were
some
a
people
little
were
full.
Sitting on top of each other. That's correct. Yeah, it was a bumping event. Everyone was trying to get in. Yeah,
the hottest
the hottest premiere in the last 7 years.
There were people hanging from the rafters.
Hanging from the rafters.
Pretty much.
Down the street, there was a hip hop show or like a free concert at the museum that was Julie Black, Champa, and I think Eloquent. And I think you had a full house as well. So everyone was out last night doing fun
big
stuff.
night in KW.
Big night in KW. And it wasn't your first private screening of this film, but it was your first hometown screening of the film. Yeah. So that has to be something special. And man, I was feeling for you. Like, we premiered Playtime, our movie, last fall, and walking up to that mic knocked me over with a feather. Talk about like shoving people. I mean, I was shaking, and I felt for you when you were done introducing the movie and you're walking back up the stairs. I almost said don't trip, because my mind, when that was me, I was like, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. But it was a very different situation. We put a movie together on a small $5,500 budget within like 11 months, 12 months, and it is what it is, and it was fun to make. I've definitely learned a lot, but this movie was a 7-year process, $250,000 budget, many people involved, professional editing. What else can I even say? The support of a university, the support of many granting bodies. Man, your crowdfunding list, that warmed my heart. When I saw your crowdfunding list come up in the credits, I was like, holy moly, that is something. lot of support from your community.
A lot, yeah.
What did that feel like coming home and bringing that movie?
It was so nice. It was so nice to finally, I've had people asking me about this project for 7 years, right? Because we had our crowdfunding in 2016. We shot the film in 2016. So people have been like, where the hell is this movie? Like, where is Goliath?
Where's my money?
Literally. Oh my God. No, seriously. And I've had to kind of evade and just be like, it's coming as we run into kind of like a challenge after challenge and had to kind of overcome these hurdles. And to finally bring it home, our whole tagline that I built the marketing campaign around is it's time to come home. So we really have felt like last night was kind of closing of this first chapter of what will hopefully be a long career in making film and TV is what I'm hoping to do. I'm like begging anyone out there, let me do this again, but
please let me make something again.
Please, I beg you.
Yeah. We already watched the trailers. I've been following your TikTok. The content has been absolutely beautiful. I've heard the passion behind the project, but sitting in that theater last night and watching this movie where I had already heard your own critique of it before I saw it, because we had met up for coffee a few weeks ago. And we also were both panelists on the information session for the City of Kitchener's youth and film competition. And that's how we met. And, I had heard sort of the backstory of things that you thought, I wish I would have done this. And here's the things that I would change. But sitting in that theater last night, I said to Marshall right afterwards, this is technically perfect. This is a gorgeous movie. The sound was beautiful. The cinematography was amazing. And this was an anamorphic project, right?
Lenses we used. Yeah, which, we were lucky.
Like, holy moly.
Yeah, Jordan Kennington is our cinematographer. Absolutely beautiful work. He was a TMU grad as well. I was a student at the time. He was an alumni, and we just reached out, and it was so blessed to have someone so talented working on this project with us.
So your protagonist, Robin, there were parts in the film where she is grappling with issues, and that's when our camera work gets a little more blurry, a little more shaky, a little more like we're following her on foot. And then there's these sweeping, gorgeous, lake shots that are as still as can be and crisp as can be. And you've got this wonderful depth of field and bokeh happening. And it's some gorgeous stuff. It felt delicious to watch.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. No, and I'm glad you picked up on kind of that feeling that we had. Like all the stuff that we shot in Toronto was at the very beginning of the film. Mm-hmm. It was the last thing we shot in the film, but chronologically in the film, the first few scenes Toronto based, and we kind of had a very steady feeling for all of those, even up into her arrival home and those first few scenes with her family. And then it's when she wakes up that first morning at home that we kind of move into more of a handheld approach that we carry out throughout the rest of the film as her kind of state of mind is deteriorating a little bit. And it's very subtle, but I'm glad you're kind of picking up on there's something there that was, going awry.
Yeah, felt it right away. I felt like I was like on the rocky boat with her. And by boat, I mean like the trip that she was on for sure. And I love the shout out to Liberty and York. You're putting that place in there. Like we're feeling like, okay, yeah, I know.
Yeah, like I didn't want to say Toronto outright, but it was obvious.
And if you know, then you know, right?
Yeah, exactly. yeah. And then I'm not ashamed for it to be Toronto, but you know how Canadian productions sometimes we're like, this is Toronto. Like we want you to know in every shot there's the CN Tower.
You can be subtle about it. You can be so subtle about it. You don't have to. And if you know, then you know. And that's what makes it special, right? Like somebody watching this, because now that you've got this out there streaming, or you're going to have this out, it is streaming. Now that you've got this out there streaming, somebody living far and wide who is familiar with Toronto will pick up on those and be like, I know where they're talking about. I know where this shot is taken. I have a question before I finally let Marshall speak. I do this on every show. The body of water for the boat scenes obviously is supposed to be Lake Ontario, but where is that actually? Because it felt like Georgian Bay to me.
We did it up in Quinte West.
Oh, so totally
most
wrong.
Of the film, we were there for 25 days, 19 of which were shooting days. And we filmed in Quinte West. The house that we shot was in Frankfurt, in the surrounding areas, and then Belleville for like the strip club and that kind of stuff.
You need that sort of, because there's not that I've seen quite that set up for that type of establishment in the city. Right? See, locations. Yeah,
we had so many locations. Like, I mean, I'm thinking that was probably one of the biggest things. We're just running between all these different places. And I mean, obviously it brings the production value up. So very grateful for that. But when you're on set and you're like running from one location to the other and you have to like, oh, do we have to cut the scene? We might not have enough time. Those are kind of the considerations you have to make and that I will be thinking about as I write my next scripts. And I have like several other projects that we can talk about later maybe. But, when you add all these locations, it definitely takes time. So something that we have to plan for in pre-production.
So we jumped right in with all the questions I want to ask because there's stuff I wanted to know. And this is how we start podcasts. Sarah wants to know something, so I jump right in.
Good.
But for anyone who has not yet seen Goliath and has not streamed Goliath, which they can do now and go and find it and watch it, what is Goliath?
Goliath is a feature film that I wrote, directed, and produced when I was 21. And now it's finally coming out 7 years later. It's been a long process, but it is about a woman returning home for her father's funeral and having to sort through some of her family's dirty laundry, let's say, kind of coming to terms with these relationships that have fallen apart over the years and trying to reconcile that with her siblings ahead of the funeral. So that's kind of our brief log line. But yeah, the film is finally available on iTunes, Apple, Google Play, YouTube, Amazon in the States, and soon to be more platforms as well. And we have a DVD coming. So we got a lot on the go, a lot of options for you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's kind of a big deal.
It's fun. It's a lot of work. It's been interesting figuring out the behind the scenes and how to work with the vendors on all of these things, because we're pretty much like, I don't have a traditional distributor the way that most people would do it. We played that game, and again, something we can talk about, but I felt at the end of the day that there wasn't a lot that, at least the small distributors that we were looking at, there wasn't a lot that they could do for us that we couldn't do for ourselves. So I thought, we can figure out the TikTok, Instagram, kind of try and figure out the advertising. And maybe I can't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in the way that you would normally want to do on a feature film to get the word out. But we got the kind of grassroots approach, and I've done some work in politics and political videography and political campaigning. So I have sort of that grassroots mindset still fresh off of the federal and provincial campaigns. And I'm just trying to apply those same principles and all of the advice that I would give my clients to my own project now. So it's been empowering to do it yourself, as opposed to hoping that a distributor who's going to take on like 20 projects and will maybe give yours a bit of attention, but it's a drama and you don't have like Timothée Chalamet on it. Mm-hmm. So, we're not going to invest that much time and energy into your project. Like they kind of make, sometimes they kind of make you feel small because they don't want to overpromise. Yeah. And it's such a fickle industry. And I understand that from a business standpoint, but from a filmmaker standpoint, like you're so exhausted, you finally got the film made, you just want it out there. So to learn the process of how to distribute this myself has been like long, complicated, exhausting, but now I know. So if I ever have to do this again, if my next project, I get no's across the board, no one's interested, I can release it to these platforms myself. And that gives me, hope for the future of independent filmmaking.
This interesting kind of serendipitous thing happened just hours before I came to see your film. I overheard a conversation in the grocery store where a woman was explaining to somebody trying to get her to sign up for a credit card. She said, I've actually lost everything. I've lost my home. I've lost my car. I've lost everything in my life, and I don't need this credit card, right? And it was very hard to hear, and I'm just for a few seconds. And then in your film, there's this amazing scene that makes me think about, I love prison movies. Sarah knows this.
And prison culture. And you taught me this.
Yep, that's right, the fist bump.
Started in prisons to control the spread of germs.
And skin cells and germs and stuff, yeah.
Did not know that at all.
I know. Learn something new every day from Mr. Marshall Ward.
So there's a scene, and I'm not going to give anything away here, but Robin is sharing something, and somebody who's older than her tells her, it's okay to share your feelings. It's something nobody can take away from you is your feelings. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes in prison movies or books, there are people in there who are holding on to the idea that you can take everything from me, but you can't break me, right? Which is kind of similar in a way, different, right? And but that's pretty powerful when somebody is telling us, because that if someone's giving that kind of advice, they have felt like they've lost everything, and that they're holding on to this idea that, well, you can't take my feelings, or you can't take you can use any kind of idea around it. Where did that come from for you as a writer? Had you heard things like that in your life, or had you seen things like that?
Oh, are you talking because he's definitely insightful and can write the screenplay and is an aspiring filmmaker 7 years ago, but these are big ideas.
Yeah, it's kind of like I've always think of it. It's kind of like Paul McCartney writing the song Yesterday. It's like, well, he was 22. But
my theory on that was he was 22 when he wrote it, and we're pushing 50 and over 50 emotions to a 22-year-old song,
right? Yeah.
Where he might have just made pretty words rhyme,
right?
Right. But sorry, back to Mark's question.
Yeah.
I love that moment where Robin is getting some sort of advice, comfort from Ellie, who's played by Krista Bridges, who is phenomenal.
That was a great character.
So I believed Ellie. If I could have if I could have, me, if I could have rewritten the script, I obviously would have put more Ellie in. She's every time she's on screen, you're just like, what the hell is right? Like she's so interesting.
I want the Ellie spinoff.
Me too. Oh girl, trust me. I already have said I want to use that character again. I like the idea of like a cinematic universe that's not Marvel. Totally. Right? Like I'm like, can we just do like a normal cinematic universe where people are just existing in the same world and they don't have to fucking blow shit up?
No, you can swear on our show.
You can beep it or whatever. But yeah, no, I'd say so that scene where Ellie's giving this advice and Robin's saying, what's she saying? She's like, Ellie says your feelings are the one thing no one can take away from you, and Robin says, well, I wish they could. Mm-hmm. And then Ellie says, it'll get better, I promise you. And Robin says, how can you promise that? And Ellie says, I'm still here, aren't I? And I found that for me was kind of the crux of the film, and just like an older person who's kind of been through it, been weathered, giving that advice to someone younger of like, I get it, I've been there, you'll get through it. Mm-hmm. And that is so key to hear. And I think that is something that I definitely heard from people when I was writing the script and I was going through a difficult period myself. People keep saying, the advice of one day at a time. And that's another thing that Ellie says. It's just one day at a time. Like no one knows what they're doing. It's a sentiment that's echoed in the scene with Parker, Daniel Maslany, who again, I can rave about these actors so much. So I'm going to try not to stop myself.
Like
Maslany, yeah.
Really?
Talent runs in that family. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, because I saw the name and we had a chat and I was like, are we talking Maslany here?
Yeah. He just came and auditioned one day. Amazing. And he was just like completely phenomenal. So his character, there's that kind of that sentiment of giving that advice too, and he's telling her like, you're doing better than you think. And then without spoiling too much, like towards the end of the film, there's this final scene between two characters, and in that it's again this sort of passing of the torch of like it's it might be difficult now, but just keep going, you'll get through it. And that is how I think, especially people experiencing depressive episodes and things like that. Right. Like you do have these really bad periods that you go through where it seems like it's like the end. And then you wake up the next day and you kind of keep on going and something different comes at you and you might feel differently, but you go through, it's like these ebbs and flows, these waves. And that was kind of what I wanted to capture is like throughout the film, Robin is struggling. It's very much a silent sort of battle, but these characters are kind of giving her these little tidbits of advice that maybe seem like frivolous or whatever, but to her, it's what she needs to hear in that moment and helps her through to the next scene.
This is something that like, for ourselves, for your character, the way that I parent my kids, what you're going through always seems so big, but give it a little bit of time and sleep on it or a few years. And it's like, what was I worried about? I got this.
I wish I heard that so much more in high school. And I was very well supported by my teachers and my parents, my family and all that. But it just that advice of like, because I think I was very secretive about like when I was depressed and kind of going through that in the process of coming out, and everything was like, my high school young adult period. But I wish I'd heard kind of just like, I know people say it gets better and you kind of roll your eyes, but it does. And it's helpful to hear that from people. And I wish I knew that sooner, but now I know, and I can tell the next.
Have you seen the movie Savages with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Laura Linney?
Hoffman,
yeah.
Yeah.
Savages, no, not yet.
Oh, it's interesting. I thought of it because it's a brother and sister who have to come together because their father has dementia and he's in the hospital. So it's not happening after a funeral, after a death, the news of a death, but rather leading up to it kind of thing. It's really amazing because this. And you put us there too as an audience in terms of these characters come together, right? These siblings, and you can feel. I guess you're feeling your own experiences with your siblings, and you're feeling theirs. Like
shout out to Julie though, what a rock star!
Yeah, my sister Julia put that whole event together.
Julia with an A. Sorry, Julia. Shout out to Julia. You're a rock star. Sorry, Marshall.
It's as though we've already spent hours with them by the time they start to. I guess kind of really break down in front of each other, that's an amazing thing you're able to do there. I guess you would attribute that to your actors as well.
I would attribute a lot to my actors. Yeah. I think they, again, like working with them, they're such professionals and they had worked together in the past. Some of them, like Jess and John, had played siblings before. Oh, wow. Michelle and Daniel were on CBC's 4 in the Morning a few years ago, near the time that we shot this. So, and then there's other connections I won't get into, but there's a lot of chemistry in this cast, and I think it really shines on camera. And we were just so lucky to have that because, especially in a film that's like very dialogue driven and characters and, a drama, it can get bogged down if it's not feeling authentic. And I think that was for me. I'm like, okay, well, the script is locked. Like that's something, the past is in the past that I did when I was 21. I encouraged improvisation so that we would have a little bit more of that like realistic feeling, that spontaneous emotion behind it. But the script was locked. So there's only so much you can do. I was just so blessed that the relationships between the actors worked so well that I think even the stuff that I am critical about in the film, I'm like, at least, at least I think it feels authentic or raw between, like, I believe that they're siblings when I'm watching it. Like, I kind of am not just, I'm obviously thinking of all the things behind the scenes that I'm like fucking Christ, that we had to go through to get to this point. But at least on camera, like, it does, I think, pay off.
Yeah.
I think we'll see.
And are you hearing, when you have an audience there, are you hearing them laugh at something you think
that was going to be fun? That's what I wanted to talk about.
It's so funny because I've seen it. I guess
we all fell in love with Parker really
everyone
fast.
loves Parker always, but it's so interesting too because it's a drama. It's like serious drama. So people are like, "Am I allowed to laugh?" So like the first 20 to 40 minutes, like, it's always interesting to see because some of the lines that I think are funny, other people don't, and then some lines I never thought would be like a comical ha ha. Like people are like laughing, and I'm like, great. I'm happy if you're reacting to anything I put on screen. That's amazing. So it's been, people love Daniel Maslany's character so much, like that he always gets really, because I feel like the audience's proxy into the story, right? Like you're coming in. We've all
played that role.
Right? Like where you're just like, you're in this family, It's
like, I'm not as emotionally invested as the rest of you are, but like, anyone need a cup of tea?
Like, anyone need anything you want to drink? Like, can I help? Like,
can I help? And
do the dishes? Like, what can I fucking do?
How about I break some ice?
Right? Like he plays it so wonderfully and effortlessly. And I think you need that character in it too to kind of break up some of those darker, heavier moments. Like the campfire scene, love it. Love hit and love it. Just hits me every time. Watch the film and you'll see. But
everyone nervously laughed. You had built up that tension, and then we all had a little chuckle there.
It's a very long, tense scene. So I think you needed that relief at the end of it, and he really gives it to you.
What I really appreciated about that scene too was that because I made it, is that Robin's character, or you let Robin fall back into ways like they're making progress. And then we were like, oh yeah, there you are again in your hole. You're struggling here. And that's real life.
And acting out in like ways that are kind of sometimes like nasty or like conflict driven, right? Like she's sort of instigating conflict in that scene, and it's obviously coming from a place she's struggling and lashing out a little bit, but you don't normally see, you want your protagonist to be likable. Everyone talks about likability in their protagonist, but she's not necessarily likable in that scene, but she's very real. Like I feel I've been that person. I've confronted that person, and I appreciate that about Jess's performance and about that character. Is it's not, for me, it was never about likability. It was just like, does this feel like a real person? And I hope it does for me.
And Robin does become more likable.
She does.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her. Like, I mean, and she shows so many, and you see her throughout the film. You're the audience is the only person who is with her throughout the entire film. Like, we see her in every scene, and so we see every side of her, and we see the masking that she puts on for different characters and the comfortability level she has around certain people or doesn't. So that's an interesting thing to explore, because I feel like everyone does that, right? You kind of mask around certain people based on your comfort level, and especially when you're struggling with something that you're trying to cover up. So the whole thing of like, for me, like there's a bit of the marketing, there's a bit of a piece around like there's a secret that's going to come up, but I don't think it's necessarily what people expect. Like it's not some big dark secret. It's more of just like, this is something that I kind of present to you in the first scene, and then throughout the film it's like a ticking time bomb, and you're like, is this gonna go where I think it might go, or is this gonna kind of go like, more of like a Hallmark route, right, where she ends up happily ever after with her childhood friend or whatever. And that was kind of the purpose of that character for me, was presenting this option of like a really happy ending to kind of tease people. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but I think it leaves it up for interpretation.
Yep, I agree.
And people were talking about after the film, they were like, oh, I think this happened, or I think this happened. And the fact there's conversation around, I left it purposely ambiguous, and I'm happy that people have picked up on that. It's exciting for me.
When you see the first scenes of the funeral and people sitting in the pews, right? I'm always very aware that, what it's in real life or captured in a film. In this case, this is the only time this group of people will be here in this space, dressed up in this way, kind of thing. Like, it just won't happen again, And you did a beautiful job in the way it was filmed, coming right across the front row, and there's so much information there in terms of who's in the front row and who's comforting who at what moment, It's like there's a ton of amazing storytelling going on in your film with no dialogue at times, hey?
And I want to lean into that more. I'm very comfortable with dialogue and characters talking and stuff. It's an easy way to get stuff across. But I think in my next project, I'm trying to move more towards how do I tell a story that's more visual and sound driven. And it's a challenge for me. It's not my comfort zone as a filmmaker, but I think I want to grow and improve in all these aspects of filmmaking. So that's kind of my next. It's like a horror film, but I'm excited about that. But no, I think I love it. I'm so excited. But I think the funeral scene for me, like you're bringing all these characters together that she's kind of crossed over the course of the film, paying tribute to this character that you don't really see throughout the film. You're only just hearing little pieces of him. He's like an invisible character. But I think people will kind of, is extrapolate the right word? It's like they'll extrapolate their own experiences onto this film, I think, because everyone's either had to be, the person who's taking care of sick parents, or at some point you will be, or the person who maybe has moved away and didn't have the responsibility, or you've lost a parent, or you have conflict with siblings. Like there's so many things that just family is a very theme that is universal that a lot of people can connect with. So, even where I don't give you sort of the full rundown or details of this family or really what the sickness of the father was or anything like that, right? We can't keep it vague. I wanted it to more be a feeling that you're getting of this feeling of coming home, laying a family member to rest and having to deal with the housekeeping that goes along with a funeral and all of that.
That we don't hear Robin's eulogy is incredibly powerful.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was Jessica Sipos' idea.
Ooh, tell us.
The lead actress. She's so that was wonderful. I'm so happy that she had that idea. And it was late in the game. Like I think we were on set or just about to shoot. And the way it happens is Robin's character it gives this beautiful eulogy at this funeral. And you see it just in the script, at least, it plays out sort of as you'd expect. She gets up to the front room, reads this eulogy out, and then we carry on with the film. But we thought, or Jess's idea was that why don't we hold that eulogy for the climactic scene in the film and overlay it with that, and it just transformed it into something completely different in a really beautiful way. So it was a brilliant idea, and Jess does a lot of screenwriting now, so the little inklings of that creativity were obviously there. Amazing. So I'm so happy to see that she's pursuing that too. But yeah, I mean, it transformed the scene completely. Like we didn't even record her saying it on set. Like we didn't do it that day. We decided, we're like, no, I love that idea. We're gonna run with it. And we just shot the eulogy then as a voiceover later, and it just
works so well.
I think so.
The title comes home.
Another neat coincidence is before I saw your movie last night, I watched the movie Terrifier 2.
And then you had to tell me about it in the car.
God, I'm so curious. I can't believe they made it for what, like $250?
Yeah.
And they made like 10 million. Like
but here's the thing.
Sounds like they spent all the money on mashed potatoes. I realize when I'm watching it, I go, this character doesn't say a single word in these movies. He never speaks, and yet I'm completely engaged by this villain, and I feel like I know a lot about what this villain's up to. I blocked it out, and now I'm remembering.
Not in the same way, but you did not hear Art the Clown speak. It's all facial expressions and actions, and I thought, wow, that's pretty brilliant.
It's smart.
Yeah,
you can do a lot of creative things without dialogue, and it's challenging, but it's worth it, I think, creatively. Mm-hmm. I need to see Terrifier 2.
I don't want to hear any more about it. I stopped you last night, and it was really hard for you to stop telling me the stories.
Is it gory? I don't like gore. Like I like a good slasher. I'm so excited for Scream 6. This is like embarrassingly excited.
No, don't be embarrassed.
I love the Scream franchise.
We're trying to get David Arquette on our other podcast.
Oh my God, do it, please.
So not since The Exorcist from 50 years ago have I heard reviews of a movie like I have about Terrifier 2 that audience members have thrown up and the audience have fainted. It is the most revolting, gory, disgusting film I've ever seen. It's just,
I feel like I have to see it, but I hate gore.
Bloody disgusting. Yeah.
God, okay.
And for you to say that, Marshall?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I have a huge horror collection.
I'm inspired by what he did with that. I mean, the gore really, it's not my favorite thing. I love horror when it's, told in other ways, more subtle, but to make a film on $250,000 like we did, we're not making 10 million off Goliath, but horror has such a marketability and a profitability to it that it's impressive what he's been able to do, and now he's set up for the rest of his career. So I'm hoping, let's get into horror and maybe we can repeat that success.
I have not told Marshall your idea, and you don't have to talk about it on here, but I haven't told him yet your idea for your screenplay for your next movie, but you probably want to save it. Maybe you can tell him after the mics are off. Yeah. But it's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, like I mean, and where I'm at as a filmmaker now is like I realize that certain projects take a certain level of investment, and like TV, for example, in Canada alone is like $2 to $4 million an episode.
It's wild.
And it only goes up from there for American TV. So you're looking at, to do like a 6 to 8 episode season, like you're looking at $20 million. So to me, as a 27, I'll turn 28 soon. I don't think it's going to help, but to come to an executive and be like, can you give me $20 million to make my first TV show about like environmental extremists, whatever. Like it's a harder sell right now. So that's kind of, I have that project very developed. You know, we've had some success with it, and I hope that we can use the momentum of Goliath to push it forward. But you also have to have like, what are your tangible projects that you can do next? And for me, that's this like small horror film that I want to do in a house with like 3 characters. And it's very based on soundscape, and I want to work with some of the same collaborators that I worked with on Goliath, and continue to kind of grow as a filmmaker that way. But I think you have to have like multiple irons in the fire all the time, because you never know. And like, I have a comedy project too. Comedy is really hot right now. People are wanting to laugh because the world is so brutal. So, you know, and then maybe we'll have, who knows, like in the future, maybe people will be feeling good again. We'll have a renaissance, and we can do sort of the more serious dramas where people are, it's a bit more palatable to people. But right now, I think people are looking for like light, and that's why comedy is doing really well. And of course, horror too, because it's an escape for people.
I don't know if Sarah, if you remember this, but I think we had a guest recently. I can't pin down who it might have been. And we were talking about horror movies, and they said the horror genre, what sets it apart from other film genres is it's actually very forgiving. Someone once pointed out to me that horror films are rarely ever about, you know, like the main character isn't going to win an Oscar kind of thing, right? It's and by forgiving, I mean, like, I just watched the Insidious series, and some of the acting isn't great, and some of the writing isn't great.
First was really good.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed these movies, and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? But if I was watching, but something like, you know, a comedy like The 40-Year-Old Virgin is perfect, right? You're not going to see those kind of things that you see in a horror movie. But I like the idea that my favorite genre of movie, horror, is a forgiving genre. You know?
And it's fun. Like, it's like, it doesn't have to be super heavy or whatever. And it can, like, I think, you know, someone who should have won an Oscar was Toni Collette for Hereditary, because the performance she gave was fucking phenomenal. Like in any genre, that was a stunning. Like the dinner table scene where she's yelling at her kid, I am like, this is like peak drama. She's so good. And she was robbed of that. But I agree. I think horror's forgiving. And the other thing I really love about it is that it plays with expectations in a way. Like you go in already kind of assuming, oh, it's going to be like this film I've already seen, or it's a slasher. We're going to go one by one. Who's going to be the final girl? Like you have, and then as a filmmaker to kind of play with that formula. And I think that's why I love Kevin Williamson, and you know, he made the Scream series, and then Wes Craven obviously directed it, and they did a brilliant job with kind of playing on people's expectations of what this film will be like. And I want to try and do that in horror too. And in other genres, and even I don't think I do it with Goliath in any way, but there's a bit of mystery in how the story unfolds. Like, I'm not giving you the full context of relationships. Like, you're kind of figuring it out as you go along. So it involves the audience in a way that some people hate, right? Like, some people really just want to know. Like, I have friends who Google movies and read Wikipedia before they watch it. Like, they want to know what the hell's going on before they sign up for it. But
I want to be completely surprised, because I'm never surprised in life. Very rarely. I'm just not. I don't know.
Nothing phases you anymore.
Maybe I got a tough skin. I don't know. But like, I'm rarely surprised. It's nice to go to a movie and just be completely engaged and just shut off everything and be surprised by everything that's coming my way.
And it's so nice when a filmmaker is able to surprise you, and is able to set up expectations and then completely pull the rug from under you. And you know, there's movies where you can see the ending coming a mile away, and there's ones that genuinely shock you, and those are the ones that people then go and talk about, and word of mouth sells a movie better than anything.
I think there's some scenes in your film that speak to this idea that I think even for friends who know each other fairly well and spend a long time talking to each other, certain environments lend themselves better to conversations. And that idea of a pool at night with the light and the way light reflects off a pool up onto your skin is... we can all relate to that. You know what I mean? We've all had some magical moment.
Near some body of water, contained body of water.
Yeah. It just kind of resets you and allows you to have conversations that maybe won't happen at a table. You know what I mean? Or elsewhere, right? Or standing outside.
Yeah, I love that scene. I love that. The intimacy of it, I think. And that's my favorite parts of the film, are those more intimate moments. Like the scene where the bird's eye shot, and it's like 3.5 minutes, and we do a slow zoom down on Michelle Milette and Jessica Sipos, and they're just having a conversation for 3.5 minutes, and it's like my favorite scene in the film, and they're just you know, reacting to each other. But it's like they're going through a bunch of, and they're kind of like in a haze. So they're going through a bunch of different conversation topics, kind of, you know, transitioning. And you're getting some more, you know, I've embedded in that scene, like there's plot, like you're getting some more about, okay, the father, and there's something going on, whatever. But then you're getting that kind of reconciliation moment that I think, you know, there's moments where Robin says sorry to Violet earlier in the film, and like she means it, but it's not quite in that same intimate way where now they've had this bonded experience and it means something to hear that. And then, and you know, and the part where she like turns her head away and stuff like that, like it's just, there's an intimacy to that scene. And I keep coming back to like the idea of intimacy. How do you feel, or how do you make the audience feel connected to these characters who they don't know these people, you know, they've just come,
but we've all had those moments.
You've had exactly moments. And you bring it into the experience.
In that exact shot that we're talking about, I was consumed by, it was so well done. So I'm listening to the words that they're saying. I'm watching their faces. I'm watching them react to each other, as you said. But I was consumed by like the light and the texture of their clothing. So it just, I was lost in the visual while I was taking in the scene. It was beautifully done. Beautifully done. Like
that for me is like a demo reel scene. Like I love that scene. Like I think they kill it, and it just feels, it feels very real to me. And we've all had that kind of falling asleep conversation with someone before.
I like how in the strip club backstage, I guess, there's like some really simple things that we've all seen, and you go, oh yeah, I guess it would be there too, like a sign that says, don't forget to turn off the lights, you know, or
very
something.
Real.
It's pretty awesome, because it's kind of like sometimes you try to imagine what places look like behind.
I'll give you after we turn the recording off, I'll show you one of the other signs that was in that room.
Oh, okay.
It was quite special.
Can't wait.
But then you realize that a lot of these places are like any other place.
Just a business.
I mean? Yeah,
it's a business. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to portray it as that. Like I didn't want it to be super, you know, in your face or like sexy or whatever. Like it's a strip club. She's clocking into work. She's clocking out.
Yep. Yeah. There's that, like, you know, there's the way the lighting looks and the way music is feeling, and then the door opens and you're outside. You know what I mean? And we've all know that experience of coming out of it's like coming out of a movie theater in a sense, right?
Whoa, like there's a world out here. Yeah, it's like disorienting a bit.
Yeah, like the first and only time, I've only done this like twice in my life, that I came out of a nightclub where I was there too long and it was daytime. I was like, it's very jarring. It's like, I'm such a rule follower. The scene in your movie where they're on the boat and they're drinking, I'm like, no alcohol on the water.
No glasses on the water. Yeah. I'm like, I was thinking as I watched, I was like, that should be in Red Solo Cups or something, like hide it.
But even that, I was just like, don't drink on a boat.
God,
this is so unsafe.
And don't hang your feet off the front.
No, but that was a great shot.
The company was like adamant about that. They were like, we don't.
A beautiful shot though. Really.
It was stunning.
But no, that first time that you come out of something like that, and your sense of, your perception of what time of day it is shaken. It's jarring, right?
After you would have gone out afterwards and met with people after the film.
Yeah, you had
right?
a celebration. We came home to bed.
And then you go back home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What does that feel like when you step into your home and now it's, you know, it's over, right? Or that evening.
Oh, Luke's crying.
No, I feel relieved.
No, but that evening's over.
Yeah.
And Sarah and I know this from showing films. That's not coming back again. Not that evening. No. You know, that there'll be more evenings.
Yeah.
But that one.
Well, this one felt like the end for me. Like this felt like I was kind of putting Goliath to rest. It was showing it to the people who raised me, who supported this project from the beginning, and for me, that was the full circle moment. Is like coming home, screening this film for my family and friends and the community, and now getting to really look forward to the next project. That is what I'm so excited about. It's like, how do I take everything that I've learned from Goliath in the last 7 years and implement this and do it again? And it's never going to be done the same way twice. Like this industry is there's no formula to it. It's a lot of figuring it out as you go. And that's, you know, you make a lot of mistakes, but you learn a hell of a lot as well. And I think now going into the next, I have my eyes wide open. I'm like ready. I'm like, I know what I would do this time differently. Yeah. Like I am ready for it. Give me a shot. So now my mission of the next, 4 to 6 months or so is going out, introducing myself or reintroducing myself to, you know, film, TV execs and saying, I just got this project done. Like, here's my next, 5 scripts. Like, what are you buying right now? Like, can we work together? Is there room for collaboration here? But it's always, it's an exhausting process because you're convincing someone to take a chance on like this dream that you have in your head. And it seems so like delusional a little bit, to be honest, and obsessive. Like the fact that you're like, oh, my idea out of millions and millions, but someone's gonna get their idea made. Like someone's out there making something, right? Yep. Like there is, and it doesn't have to be such a competition with each other. Like obviously there's a lack of resources to an extent, and like Telefilm can only fund a certain amount of projects a year. But like if you're a filmmaker, you're gonna find a way to make it happen, whether it's for $250,000 or for $2,500. And yeah, I had coffee with a 19-year-old named Nick Milcharczyk yesterday, and he's going out and producing his first feature film right now. So he just started the crowdfunding campaign. So
I want to talk about.
You should have him on the show. He's a really, really talented kid. And I saw his first, I just watched it the night before our screening, his first short film. I think it was called In the Weeds, and it was so good. And he made it for $2,500. And it was just like, I was like, this is better than some of my classmates were making in film school. You know what I mean? Like I was like, what are you doing in school? But obviously stay in school because you want to make your parents happy or whatever. But like there's talent, and people are very good at stretching a limited amount of resources and making it work. So if there's ways that we can continue to do that outside of and I want to work within the Hollywood system, of course. Like if Netflix wants to hire me, I would love to work for them.
Dear Netflix,
please hire me. But are you gonna like leave your fate in the hands of these companies in LA who don't know that you exist and who are probably not going to answer your phone calls or emails? For me, no, because I'm like very deeply invested in storytelling and filmmaking. I have been since I was a kid. So I'm always going to find what is the window I can crawl through to get in this industry. And if no one's letting me in, I'm going to have to fucking figure it out myself. And that's where you find allies in the industry and other people who are trying to do that, who maybe they also have been sort of rejected by the traditional predominantly patriarchal system that has been set up. And it's funny to me because I get like comments like when I'm pitching sometimes, and it's telling a story that has diverse characters, and they'll say, well, what, like, I don't know if you're the one to tell this story. And I'm like, well, I did all the research. It's not like it's a historical story about like Aretha Franklin or something, right? Like it's like, it just happens that the characters are diverse, and it's about like environmental extremism and that movement. But you get the comment, the pushback, okay, well, but you're, a white kid from KW. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I don't think, I think we have to move past kind of the just, because it's still all white guys at the top, so it's like for them it's convenient to like place certain people in certain positions so they get their funding, they meet their criteria, but it's not authentic.
But I've spent 3 visits with you now, 4 visits. I've spent 4 different days with you having conversations, and I know that you share the same values that I do, that if you were to make it, you'd be pulling some of us up there with you. You'd be pulling the people up that you believe in their projects, you believe in their work, and not just playing the boys club game, which we talked about extensively at our first coffee. I'm not interested in
the boys club. I'll never be a part of it. I wasn't in high school. I wasn't in university. Yeah. I'm never going to be in the exclusive boys club. And I think we just have to make our own then and find ways that, again, if Telefilm and the Arts Council and everyone says no to us, who can we go to? And that's, it's not easy. No. We're going to have a lot of conversations about figuring out how to kind of work around the system. But when I see kids like Nick who are doing these incredible, and he made this film that I watched, like it truly, I was like, you're going to give me a run for my money. This is so fucking good. So good. I'll send it to you. But
please, I want to see it.
It's a 20-minute short film. He gets so much done in it. There's like character work, like there's suspense. It's thrilling, and I'm excited to see. And that was one that he made when he was like 16 or 17. Amazing. So I'm very curious to see what he makes next. So definitely have him on the show. But
yes, please connect us.
But that's what I mean. We need to bring up the next generation of filmmakers. I don't want everyone running to LA. I don't want everyone to be, and nothing like my favorite filmmaker. One of my favorite filmmakers is Jason Reitman. I have a tattoo of a plane on my wrist. I love the film Up in the Air. It really spoke to me at a time when I needed it. But his father obviously, came up in the industry, and you have the Cronenbergs, and you have like all these families, and that's fine. Like I don't fault them. They're very talented.
But there's no reason why we can't make good stuff here.
But we can, like, it's the funding is going to go often to certain people, and we have to find ways around that. But yeah, like it's why can't we? It doesn't have to be competing with each other as much. Like how do we elevate the industry as a whole and support domestic grown content in a way that Quebec does, right? Or like India has Bollywood. Like it's like Canada, we're just so used to consuming American content, trying to replicate it. But we risk kind of losing a bit of our identity, our culture, but also our talent, because everyone's running to the States because that's where the money and the jobs are. And I am personally not interested in living in the States. It's beautiful, whatever. There's some merit to it. There's some fault, but I like being in Toronto and being right by my community, being able to come home on weekends and see my family and high school friends and teachers and whatever, right? Like it's nice to have that proximity, but people feel like they have to run to LA and start playing that game, and it's not something I'm interested in. But you know, you go where an opportunity will take you, but if we can keep those opportunities here, why wouldn't we?
Bond Park is made possible with the support of the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, the Kitchener Public Library, our local sponsors, and you, our loyal listeners.
We make this show in Sarah's kitchen. If you like it, please rate and subscribe.
That helps us get the word out to more listeners.
The Bond Park theme song is by Alan Lung. Sarah and I are super excited for season 4 and all the amazing shows we're going to bring you.
We're also really excited about our secret side podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. And it's not actually about wrestling.
No, it isn't. It's about a lot of things.
Mostly life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of laughter.
Yeah, there's tons and tons of laughter.
We're incredibly proud of it. So please check it out on all your streaming platforms. An unscripted, I can't say it. Can you say it?
An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Meow, 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 meow.